File Pilot. Yes, you heard me right. Not File Explorer, which is this little application that you're probably all too familiar with by now, but rather File Pilot, which is an upcoming application designed from the ground up with its sole purpose to not only act as a replacement to the default File Explorer, but be better than it in every single way, from the UI to the features and everything in between. In this video, I'll be diving deep into this application to find out whether it stacks up to its goal. So without any further delay, let's begin. Chapters below. Oh, actually, quick disclaimer. File Pilot is an upcoming developing application, like I mentioned, so depending on when you watch this, things could be a bit different to what I show, but it's pretty finalized according to their website timescales. I'll go over the website and downloading to begin with, so skip to this timecode to get to the actual application part of the video if you like. Anyway, let's carry on. Alright, as always, let's start with the downloading experience. I feel a website and the experience you get before you even get the app anywhere near your PC can be quite telling of the application itself, and have to say, File Pilot does not disappoint. Heading over to their website, you'll notice the bold statement in the center of the screen, stating that it is indeed a next-gen file explorer. Below that, they mention how the app is built from the ground up and is currently in beta. The version at the time of recording is 0.2.8. Scrolling down the page, you're given a screenshot of the app, which contains a lot of interesting stuff that we'll cover shortly. And below that, the three key focuses of the application. First and foremost being speed, second being the fact that the app can be used with both a mouse and keyboard for all functions, and thirdly, the fact that the app is highly customizable, from themes and hotkeys to even having different layouts. Definitely a lot of big claims made here, and things that Windows users have been wanting for years. Hopefully File Pilot is able to deliver. Actual downloading. Heading over to the download link, there's a few interesting things to note. On the left, you have the ability to download an exe file for the current beta version available, and on the right, you can pre-order, which we'll talk about more towards the end of the video. Either way, I think it's interesting how device support is Windows only for now, with expansion to macOS and Linux in the future. So yeah, File Pilot is after Finder, as well as all the file managers across all distributions of Linux it seems. Anyway, downloading the app and running it, you're not provided with the standard "would you like this app to make changes to your computer" graphic, but clean and simple dialogue asking where you want to install or whether you want to use the app standalone. I'll obviously be installing it for the sake of this video. Clicking on the install button, after about a second or so, the File Pilot application opens up. Yep, you saw and heard that correctly. There were no cuts involved, and that's literally how fast the application gets installed to your PC. It probably took like 2 seconds if that, and there wasn't even any sort of loading bar. Now, I don't know if this is because of it being in beta or what, but I don't think I've ever had an app install that fast. Anyway, enough on the speed in which the app installs. Does it deliver when using the app? Well, I think now's a good time to discuss the interface. The first thing that strikes me is the fact that everything is smaller font-wise compared to the default File Explorer. Well, at least for me, on my resolution and scaling it is. That's not to say that it's unreadable, far from it. Overall, everything looks compact, but not cramped. Anyway, in terms of key areas, I'd say that you have around 6 to 7 different areas of the File Pilot interface, each of which are cluttered with controls and functionality. So let's go through them now, and I think a good place to start is the File Pilot menu. Starting in the top left, we have the File Pilot menu icon, which when clicked will give us various options, such as being able to go to a specific file directory or path, activate a command palette of quick actions, more on that later, loading and saving window layouts, as well as application settings, which is again another aspect we'll touch upon in due course, because trust me, there are quite a few options in here. Though one option that I missed intentionally is the very first one, which allows you to hide and show the sidebar. You can also do this by pressing the Ctrl B shortcut, which you might have seen in the menu, as well as shortcuts for the other actions listed below as well. All in all, you'll be seeing a lot of this throughout File Pilot, which is a good thing and allows you to get familiar and learn the shortcuts required in order to activate various actions. Oh, and can I just mention before we dive deeper into this application, File Pilot actually supports smooth scrolling inside of the application. So if you scroll on a list or anything for that matter, you get this nice scroll going on, regardless of whether you use your mouse or trackpad. You might think this is trivial, but trust me, using this for a bit and going back to the File Explorer with its barbaric jittery scrolling will just make you question Windows in 2025. Though I'm not sure what this large space is about that you seem to get when you scroll to the bottom of a list. This might be intentional to keep your focus towards the middle of the screen, but it does seem a little bit odd as well. Anyway, let's move on to the sidebar, which is what we were talking about. Overall, I'd say that it looks better than the Windows one. I can't exactly say what it is about it exactly, but the sections definitely help to break things up. The 4 main sections that you do have are recents, bookmarks, storage locations, and places. Though I would have to give props for showing the storage indicator bars underneath each of the respective storage locations, as not only does it look great visually, but also provides you with functional information right at a glance, which I could imagine being especially useful if you're someone who has many drives connected to your computer at any one time. As you can see, my spare drive definitely needs a clear out. Another cool thing is that you can collapse and close the sidebar sections by just clicking on them, and if you right click on them, you have the ability to collapse and expand all of them at once, and even show paths for your files and folders. clutters that might be present. Personally, I think it clutters things a little, as you really do have to have quite a wide sidebar in order to see anything regarding the paths, but at least you have the option. You also have the option to reorganize these groups, but you can only do this by right clicking and then by selecting shift down or up, as opposed to just clicking and dragging, which is what you might try to begin with. Though the annoying thing that I found is that these groups don't stay there, because after a reboot, the groups go back to their default locations. Not sure if this is just an issue for me, but just thought I'd mention it. And finally, to wrap up the sidebar, we should probably touch upon this little search field. Yes, I say search because despite what the text says, typing in this field functions very much like a universal search of all your files across your computer. Overall, I find it fast, fairly accurate, and easy to use, with a nice scrollable list that takes over your sidebar when you use this functionality. Oh, and if you have the option I mentioned before enabled regarding show file paths, you'll get the location of your results shown to you when searching, as well as having the ability to search by path as well. Though I do wish that you could navigate these results by using the arrow keys, because you have to use your mouse to select the results manually currently, and the same thing goes for pressing escape to close a search instead of having to manually press the X button. Either way, clicking on a result will populate it in the main viewing area on the right. Pretty smart UI if you ask me, compared to the likes of the default search in the File Explorer. Overall, if you've ever used Everything Search, it functions very similarly in regards to the accuracy and speed, so definitely a compliment as far as that goes. And if you haven't used Everything Search, then I guess you've been missing out, though you could always catch up by watching this video. Anyway, with the sidebar covered, let's move on to the meat of the application, starting with the tab bar. There's not too much to mention here, to be honest, as it functions exactly as you'd expect, with Ctrl T to create new tabs with this nice animation I must say, Ctrl W or middle mouse button to close tabs, sometimes without an animation unfortunately, and your standard additional options present when you right click. Though opening a new window is definitely one of the more useful ones I'd say. However, if you click and begin to drag a tab, you'll notice that you can obviously move it and reorganize your tabs as you'd expect, but you'll also notice some really interesting options present around the whole file pilot window, allowing you to split your view left, right, top or bottom by simply letting go of the tab in each of the respective locations. And obviously, if you have more than one split present, you get controls on different portions of the screen depending on where you drag your tab to. You get the idea. Resizing your tabs and splits is also a breeze, as you can simply just drag the split line that gets highlighted when you hover over it, and might I add, in a very smooth fashion as well. All in all, I have to give props to FilePilot here for implementing tab splitting in a very intuitive way, rather than having a drop down or other more complicated ways of achieving the same task. It's the small things as well, like being able to just drag to the center of the square part instead of going to the tab bar to recombine a tab to that split. I mean, basic left and right split isn't even a thing in the standard Windows Explorer in 2025, let alone being able to have as many as you want and reorder them super easily as well. Though one thing that I did notice is that depending on the split that you have focus on, there'll be subtle fading of inactive splits as well as moving controls to the respective areas to help you keep focus. Oh, and regarding file names, you also get this subtle fading occur when renaming files to keep your focus, and if you move your cursor within the rename window, you get this blue flash of color. Just a nice touch I noticed. Not to mention all the controls to help you bulk rename files are here as well if that's your thing. Alright, enough on tabs, splits and the tab bar. Let's take a look at the address bar and related controls, which are located just below the tab bar. Starting at the left side, you have the back, forwards and the up directory button. Hovering over the buttons gives you a quick pop-up to show you the location that you'll go to if you press the button, and next to these we have a drop down arrow button which shows your recently visited locations. Now, while it is cool to have this list here, I do think that it's a bit of a missed opportunity with having the hold and back and forwards buttons do nothing, because in a browser when you hold the back and forwards buttons you get a quick history drop down list for you to select from, so to add something like that in addition would be a nice quality of life feature. A real negative though would be the fact that trackpad gestures to go back and forwards like you do in the browser for example does nothing in this app, which admittedly the default File Explorer doesn't have either, but it would be a nice quality of life feature for those on laptops. Anyway, next to that we have a lock icon which allows you to set a view option specifically for that folder. So if I want large icons, small icons or something like details view for example, I can enable that view, press a lock icon, and now regardless of what my view might be currently set to when I browse other folder locations, when I return to this specific location the view will always be the one that I set. If I was to unlock or unsave the location, next time that I go into the location it will just follow through from whatever view I'm currently using. Now this functionality is present in the native Windows Explorer, but why it isn't crystal clear like this to set or view, I have no idea. Moving on, we have bookmarks, which as you'd expect when clicked on adds a location to the sidebar on the left under the collapsible bookmark section, which you can then go about rearranging as you like. Again, another little thing that you can certainly do in the default File Explorer with quick access, but when you go to a favorited location in it you get no indication that you've bookmarked it. Address bar URL. Either way, next is the address bar itself, which is a few different things to note. Compared to the Windows address bar, I have to say it definitely looks a lot more minimal and clean, and the subtle highlighting of the location locations that you're in within the tree compared to the rest of the path is definitely a nice touch. I've also noticed that if you're in a folder location and move up a path, which you can denote by the highlight color, you can still see where you came from in the address bar as you move up the hierarchy, as opposed to getting rid of it, which is what you get in the Windows Explorer. Personally, I quite like it, and I think it's a nice touch and works because of the highlighting that I mentioned. Another improvement to the File Explorer is the drop-down breadcrumbs, which you can do in the default File Explorer just fine as well, but in File Pilot, the interface is far more modern, with respective icons for each of the locations, as well as even being able to see files in this breadcrumb view, which is certainly something you don't see in the File Explorer, as over there, it's limited to folders only. And get this, you're also told the number of items in that location from the breadcrumb menu, and you can even search for a specific file or folder right from the drop down as well. Honestly, the functionality improvement in just this feature alone is very substantial, not to mention the subtle animations like when it expands or contracts depending on the length of the menu items. But as it turns out, this is an address bar, so clicking on it will allow you to enter an address and go directly to that location. Now when you click the address bar, you don't stay in the confines of it like you get in the Windows File Explorer, but rather a spotlight type menu appears, allowing you to type in order to dig deeper into the folder or location you've got selected. Or if you press escape, you'll get taken back to the top of the tree, where you can select a location to go further into by using the tab key, or if you're done with the address bar view and want to see the folder location, simply press Ctrl Enter to open the area that you're viewing, or Enter on its own to open the location that is currently selected. You can also use these arrow buttons if you find that easier, and there's also a few shortcuts listed below to make things clearer if that helps. Oh, and a final thing to note while we're in here is that at the top level hierarchy, you can clear your recents, which also reflects across to your sidebar in the normal view. Toggle Expand Folder. Okay, so closing the address interface, there's one more button to cover in this section, and that's this 3 dots icon. Now in here, there's quite a few useful options. For starters, you have Toggle Expand Folders. By enabling it, it expands every folder and all the subfolders in each of them and displays all the files from within them in a single unified view. So if you, let's say, have photos from different holidays, with this option, you can just go to your holidays folder and enable this view, and you can see all the photos across all your holidays in one view. No need to open multiple windows or anything. It's also very well thought out as well, because when you enable this view, you might think that you get confused between the countless files from all these different locations and hierarchies. But it seems File Pilot have thought of this too, because when you do enable it, the details view, the list view, and the columns view automatically force the locations of all the files to be visible in the same column as your file name in this grey colour, so it's not too distracting either. And if you hover over the locations, you can click to go right there. Another subtle detail I noticed is that when enabling this mode, you'll get a small ellipsis appear in the address bar as a nice touch, not to mention the icon in the lower left hand corner changing as well, from which you can also enable a feature, as well as searching the current window you're viewing. So yeah, system wide search in the top left and location searching here, though location searching does have a few tricks up its sleeve too, such as being able to filter literally whatever you're looking at in the window, subfolders of subfolders that you can enable with this option, and thus the actual file paths, and being able to specifically end the search or continue with it into a folder that appears in your search result. Honestly, a lot of searching power is given to you here between these two different tools. Inspector. Okay, that was a big detour. Back to the options, and the next one on this list is the Inspector. This is a fancy way of saying the preview, if you like, that you get in the default Windows Explorer, but once again, it's basically the Windows preview on steroids. For starters, it adapts based on the size of the window, meaning that the app automatically places it on the bottom or the right side of the window, depending on the space available. Though, if you always want it on the right side, you can do so with this toggle, and if you always want it on the bottom, you can do it with the next icon. Now, what good is a preview without good image preview functionality? And once again, the app doesn't disappoint. When you have an image selected, it appears in the preview. From here, you can zoom to fit to the size of the preview window, scale the image to a 1:1 size based on your monitor between the various images within your viewport, as well as toggling on the grid and minimap zoom profile, which you will have hopefully seen doing its job in the corner of the screen, telling me where in the image I am when zoomed in. Honestly, it's the subtle details like these that really make the app great. But we're not done yet, far from it. In the upper right hand corner of the inspector, you have your file name, followed by this little arrow. Clicking on it will give you some basic metadata, which would have been fine to stop there, but if you press this button, it toggles extra details mode. And from here, what can I say? You really can go to town and find out every little thing about an image or file. Microsoft really needs to be taking notes, preferably without using Copilot, might I also add. Anyway, closing this info panel, there are a couple more things that you should know about this inspector tool. One is the fact that you can move between files by pressing these arrow keys if you prefer that, and the second is to do with folders. You see, I haven't shown you the inspector yet when it comes to previewing folders, and that's because, again, it's another area where this app just goes above and beyond. Typically, when you preview a folder, you probably expect to see something like this in the default File Explorer, or like this from the likes of the Files application. A little nicer, but nothing too crazy. In File Pilot, you get this. Yep, you're looking at this correctly. In File Pilot, when you preview a folder, you don't just get the count of how many items it contains, but rather it just straight up shows you what's in there, almost like a split tab if you like. And what's best about this is that it's still preview first. So if you double click a folder within the preview, it gives you the properties rather than just opening that folder, because you can obviously do that from the left side window. And if you're still not convinced, you can choose to have the properties dialog that we spoke about just a moment ago present permanently as a pop-out that stays active even when you switch between different files and folders, so you're not losing anything really. Though if you want to lock a certain view to the inspector, you can do that too by using the familiar lock button, and to bookmark a location, it's the bookmark button, which we covered previously. The remaining items. Okay, so that was another big detour, but quite needed. Don't worry, we've almost finished with this section. Carrying on with the 3 dots menu and its list, we have quite a few controls that we've already seen, from split tabs to other tab controls. And down below, we have the option to show file extensions, toggle hidden files on and off, recent files on and off, which actually organizes the window you're viewing based on the files you've recently accessed, and the ability to show system files on and off. Though a couple of additional options include Open in File Explorer, which does what it says on the tin and opens that location in the File Explorer, and the console option, which opens a command prompt window at the location you're currently in, so it might be useful to the tech savvy out there. Alright, and finally getting to the bottom of the barrel here, trust me at last. Well, before we head into the settings anyway, we have the main file viewer window. Overall, it's similar to the default File Explorer, but if you hover over a file or folder in this view, you get a little bit of metadata about it, which is instant by the way once you've evoked it, unlike the File Explorer. And if you go down to the bottom right corner of the window, there are a few more things to note. First is the folder count. Next to that is the file count, which as you might have guessed is the number of files in the window that you're viewing. And if you select multiple items, a count icon will appear telling you the number of files you have selected. Oh, and if you click on each of them, you can disable that type. So if you don't want to see the folders present in the location you're viewing, you can do just that. And if you want to disable all the files from showing and just leave your folders, you can do that as well. A lot of flexibility on offer here for sure. Following the counters, we have this strange little icon. Hovering over it tells you what it does, and honestly I really wish File Explorer had this setting, because by pressing this button you're able to change the sorting order to sort the folders first and then your files, or just sort everything together. Generally I do just fine with having folders be sorted first, but having an option like this is definitely very powerful for those edge cases. And finally we have a percentage zoom indicator, but not just any zoom indicator. Oh no, this indicator combines all the view options that you'd find in the File Explorer into one single, easy to understand scrollable list. Starting with details as the lowest zoom, lists at 10%, columns at 20%, and small icons starting to appear at 30%, and then on out, icons just increase in size until they're at the XL icon size. An easy to use and simple system to understand for sure. The only thing that I would say is missing though is the option to group your files, because as far as I can see, there doesn't seem to be a way to get this option, like you do in the File Explorer when you right click. Specific to the detail view though, a couple things to note is that you have a column for folders and files, which can be very useful to tell at a glance whether folders have multiple files or subfolders within them, the size of items actually being sensible and stating gigabytes, megabytes or kilobytes as appropriate, unlike the File Explorer. And in the type column, instead of sorting by type and then scrolling down to the type you need, you can simply hit the checkbox and filter all the file types you have as required. Another great quality of life feature. Oh, and in regards to the right click menu, when you do right click in a non-details view that is, you get options to view, sort by and the other usual controls, but it is interesting that each of these are click to expand. And if you decide to use your mouse as well, the fact that you can also favorite menu items and customize the right click menu options is really useful. You can also scroll the options if the window's too small, though the main elephant in the room is at the top of the menu. Yep, you can literally just search for the command you need and press enter. This is really some true power user territory. I never knew I needed this until now. And talking of power user features, here's one for you, and actually one that is stolen straight out of macOS, and that's the fact that when dragging files to a folder, if you hold it for a little bit longer, that folder will open up itself and show you the contents inside, meaning that you can then continue to drag your files into deeper and deeper subfolders, all without ending your drag. Definitely very handy. The only thing that is missing though is the double flash confirmation that you get in macOS, but something tells me that might be patented. Though the only knock that I would give when it comes to dragging files is the fact that the window doesn't auto scroll when you move your mouse to the edge of the active area, which could be a deal breaker for some, but personally I think this will be fixed in future versions, so make of that what you will. But if you really want to take your quick controls and keyboard game to the next level, be sure to press Command-Shift-P in order to activate the command palette. This is a spotlight type interface that is not only customizable but allows you to get the core controls of the File Pilot interface by only using the keyboard, as you can search for the command directly or use the keyboard shortcut that is present next to the commands. And yes, it really is quite comprehensive based on the categories present and the way that you can customize your keyboard shortcuts for each action option as you like. Okay, so before we wrap up this video, let's take a look at the settings and key options available, because yes, this app has customization still left on the table even after all that. You can get to the settings from a few places, but the most easiest is by clicking on this icon in the top left and then by pressing options, or you could just use the Control shortcut. A dialog box then appears from which you can search the setting that you're looking for if you like, or just scroll through it. Overall, the key notable ones for me were the font related options, the spacing between line items, which you'd notice most when it comes to the likes of the details view for example, animations, which I would 100% leave on, as well as rounded corners. Dark mode, light mode, I'll let you choose that, or better still go auto mode, which is my personal preference. Continuing down, alternating rows is below that, which I'm partial to. I like it and it makes sense on macOS, but on Windows, there's just something about it which feels off, but that might just be me. Opacity settings are present below that, as well as path trimming for the first recognizable folder. Not sure what determines a recognizable folder, but generally it seems to work pretty well, I'd say. Calculating content size should generally be something you don't have to touch, as I imagine most people are using SSDs at this point, but at least the option is here, as well as your usual folder opening controls, whether that be on press or release. And finally, last but certainly not least, you have the option to choose where you want File Pilot to open new Windows app when you launch it. So this could be your root folder, your home folder location, or just the ability to pick up where you left off. And the same thing applies to new tabs too, both of which are simple but powerful features and are just a few of the features still missing in the File Explorer in 2025 without using external tools or utilities. Though I do feel like File Pilot could do a little better in also allowing us to specify a location of our choosing for both fresh opens and new tabs. Oh, and if this menu is a bit much, you can press this button to condense it down to just the headings if you prefer. Okay, so what's my verdict then of the File Pilot application? Should you switch to it over the File Explorer? Well, overall, I hardly have any complaints to be honest. The app is super small, fast, modern across the board from the animations to the built-in file search, and does all this while being a very lightweight application on resources. There's no loading with this app, crashes, I just haven't had any, and with all the features I've covered in this video, honestly, just take a look at the chapters at this point, I have no issues in recommending it to anyone who wants to take their Windows file exploring to the next level. Though I should note that there's no app out there that will fully replace the File Explorer and integrate itself into Windows with the likes of the Windows E shortcut, external dialog boxes, and more niche things that are baked into Windows, if that's something you're looking for. It's just a limitation of Windows in general, unless you want to make your computer unstable and mess around with the registry, that is. In terms of improvements to the app, like I mentioned previously, I would have liked to seen the grouped view option implemented, as well as the macOS column view in honesty, as a bit of a wild card, as this would really have completed the feature set, and it's quite a popular feature that you get with macOS Finder that you just don't get with Windows. And considering that the Files application, which is also a third-party File Explorer replacement, has managed to add it, I don't see why File Pilot can't. I know the Breadcrumbs is Windows' answer to this, but to be honest, you can't beat columns view at times. Another thing that needs improvement, though I think this might just be me, is the speed of the right-click menu options. Like every part of the app is super fast, I might even say faster than the File Explorer at times, but the right-click menu taking ages to load on certain occasions does throw the vibe. Now granted, this is beta software, so I don't want to criticize it too early, but it is something that needs to be worked on. And a final couple of improvements I'd suggest would be the back and forwards gestures for trackpad, which I've already mentioned before, but the more important one for me is a lack of file previews within an icon view. So if you're viewing PDFs or any other file type like SVG for example, which is something that I use quite regularly, File Pilot doesn't preview it but just shows a generic icon instead. Meanwhile, this functionality is already present in the File Explorer, so going back to no previews was definitely a block to my workflow personally. Either way, I do have one warning regarding this app though, and that's the fact that because this app is so good, I can see many people switching to it and becoming very comfortable with using it until the day comes when the app goes out of beta. Now, there doesn't seem to be any indication on when this will happen, but when it does, you'll have to make your mind up on whether it's worth paying the asking price of, well, it depends on your region, but check it out. It's a tough pill to swallow for sure, and the price is a little bit steep in my opinion, but again, considering all the features, it might be worth it to you. Though the File Explorer is just one part of Windows which you might want to consider revamping and improving with other applications. However, if you really want to take your Windows experience to the next level, then you need to check out this playlist and more Windows videos just like this one. Or if you've had enough of Windows, then why not check out this cool video here. Anyway, like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.